Going on, everybody? Hope you're having a fantastic day as we go into this. First and foremost, as our people are trickling in, have you been on this cold calling line before? Let us know in the chat if you've been in here before. Would be great to just see, across the board who's been here, who's not. Also, the key question. So we have some new people here today. We're going to tell you what we're going to do as you get into this, but we also like to know, where are you tuning in from? But we have another jam-packed session per usual. And what we do on these cold calling lives is we do have people that will volunteer and they'll come up live and talk about their cold calls and they will break them down. So that's a component that's super fun. And then also, as a big piece of that as well, if you have any questions around cold calling, you can insert that into the Q&A as well. So that is what we're going to be focused on here moving forward. Super excited to dive into this with Bill, but appreciate everybody telling us where they're tuning in from and where they're coming in from. And again, we'll get into the session. But without any further ado, Bill, would you so please introduce yourself and tell us what's up, what's going on, a fun fact.
You got it. You got it. Calling in from the City of Champions today, Boston. I'm Bill Petersen. I'm the sales trainer and coach here at Cognism with the sales team. Spent 11 years at Oracle, 3 years at Intuit, where my sort of foundational places that I spent time. And to throw an interesting fact out there, I lived as a year and a half as a Hindu monk in Mayapur, India.
Okay, well, we got to learn a little bit more of that. What led you to make that decision? That's the first question.
Yeah. So my degree is in education, but my concentration originally was cerebral palsy rehab. I have always had an affinity for Indian food, music, grew up in a town with a lot of friends, and had an opportunity to live as a monk and work with special ed folks in India, and wrote my thesis on some of the learnings I had around functional fixedness, as well as experiential learning.
That's great. That's one of the craziest things I've heard. What before we move into quick shot on my side and then we'll dive into it, what has been the most informative or transformational thing that you learned in that process that has helped you into what you do today?
It really taught me about people, how we interact, that outside of language, there's tonality, there's, visual cues, body cues, and things like that, where I was dealing with folks who their family didn't speak English. A lot of them couldn't speak or talk at all, but to be able to be very observant and to learn what people were saying or meaning by their intentions of their body, their movements. And one of the biggest learnings, we had a gentleman who everyone was like, they called him naughty, right? And he would pull himself over in his wheelchair, and they called it behavioral. And I started to really watch when this happened, and I found out it was whenever he was in a bright setting and he was trying to get out of the bright setting. He wasn't being naughty. He didn't have a way to communicate correctly. So we worked on that and found a way for him to, he would make certain noises. And, when those happen, we knew, we got to get him get him out of the brightness. And within a year, he was able to get out of his wheelchair onto a moving board and feed himself in a room that had purple lights, kind of like your background. And it was transformational for his life.
That's incredible. Well, Bill, thanks for sharing a story. Not where I thought we would go today, but
here we did.
Yeah, we did. Here we are. So me, if you haven't been to this show before, or you're not familiar with who I am, I'm Morgan Ingram. I'm the founder of AMP. We enable B2B organizations to activate influencers and subject matter experts to produce pipeline-driven content. I've also in the past have done sales training at JB Sales, where I trained Salesforce, Slack, Google, you name it, on pipeline. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. And so with that being said, this is the agenda, right? So first and foremost, what are you going to learn? A couple cold calling tips, live feedback on calls, Q&A. Very simple. We don't make this complicated over here. We just like to give actionable advice. So if you do want to practice your cold call and you want to do a mock cold calling scenario, raise your hand. Raise your hand and we will answer your questions. We are here to answer those questions. So please do that for us if you want to come to a mock cold call. Or if you have just questions overall and you're like, hey, I want to know more about cold calling, submit your questions in the text Q&A and we will do that as well. So text Q&A if you have a just journal question, video Q&A if you want to come up and do a mock cold call with us. But before we do that, what we're going to do, let's get into the cold calling tips. Now, with that being said, I'll come back to the slides here and let's go to Bill first. Bill, what is your tip, your number one tip on cold calling?
I think it starts with the beginning, planning, right? Doing your
Yeah.
research, understanding who am I reaching out to, right? What is their role? What are they saying on LinkedIn about what they do? But also that little tagline at the top, right, where you can kind of put in, here's what's important to me, where do I fit in the go-to-market strategy, right? Whether I'm marketing, operations, sales, right? And really making sure I understand that company. What do they sell? Right? How might they reach their customers? Where would what we do fit into them? Because again, I think in the end is remembering everything we do needs to be about the other side. It's not about us, it's about them and what they're trying to do, helping them be successful, remove obstacles. And the more we can know that, the more effective, right? Our cold calling, our emails, our LinkedIn things can be much more effective. So I would say that's my number one starting point.
I love that. Hopefully that was helpful for you all. I'm going to go to mine. So my number one tip for cold calling, I've said this before, and as I listen to more calls, I still believe it to be true, is pausing. And it's hard in the moment, to be fair, to pause on a cold call because you're so nervous. There's a lot of things going on. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening. But the 1 to 1.5 second pause will fundamentally change the way that you respond to an objection or anything that you're doing. So my number one tip is to pause when you're facing that objection so that you can go right into it. So that's my tip for cold calling for the day. There's some other ones out there that people can have, but that's my number one. So that being said, we already do have someone who's raised their hand. So we will let them up here on the stage. And like I said, if you have questions, throw them in the text Q&A. We're more than happy to answer that. But we have Ali here. Ali, what's going on, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm good.
So
I'm good.
let's talk about three things here for you. One is, what are the personas that you typically go after? Two, what are you actually selling? And three, how long you've been cold calling? And then we'll decide which one of us you're going to call.
Absolutely. We work mainly with HR persona, so VPs of HR, chief human resources officers, sometimes in the compliance department as well. What we sell is an enterprise case management software that helps individuals keep track of all their investigations in one centralized place, have a workflow so they don't spending tons of time on the manual tasks, and they actually have a workflow to go off and also manage their investigations and their individual investigators. I've been cold calling for around 1 year, not specifically in a tech company. I used to work previously like an event management company. I've been just starting off this new role about a month and a half, so fairly fresh, still getting used to it. But that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Ali, will appreciate you coming on. Bill, do you want to be the prospect or me to be the prospect? What do you want?
I'm more than happy to grab HR.
Okay.
Having worked with WorkHuman for 3 years, I'm game on. Let's go.
Cool. Bill is your prospect. He is now HR. So Ali, how this works is you're going to do a ring and call him. The goal is to obviously schedule the call. And then for everyone listening in the audience, you will provide us feedback after this. We'll give feedback too. And again, if you want to be a part of Raise Your Hand, we'll get you in. But Ali, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Ring, ring.
This is Bill.
Hi, Bill. I'll be super upfront with you. This is actually a Tuesday morning sales call. I'm not sure if that makes you want to hang up or if I could have 30 seconds to explain why I gave you a call today.
Yeah, I can handle 30 seconds. What's up, Ali?
Okay, awesome, Bill. Bill, I noticed you're the VP of HR over at Zinc Incorporation. Now, typically, HR departments come to us because they're having trouble keeping track of all their investigations in one centralized place. They're spending way too much time on manual tasks and have no workflow to their investigations. Now, Bill, I know called you kind of out of the blue here, but is what I'm saying kind of aligned with some of the troubles you're having right now?
Um, you probably caught us at a good time. We have grown quite a bit over the past year and a half. So the scale is definitely something we're challenged with. Um, and I would definitely say too, as we bring on business partners to support the different lines of business with this growth, that could be, a potential solution. Not sure if we're there yet, but, would like to kind of hear, as we start thinking towards.
Bill, you kind of cut off with me there.
He did cut off. I thought it was part of his game.
Cast shiny. Can you hear me now?
You can hear you now.
Yes.
You're good now.
Awesome. I'll throw it back at you again. I'll go a reboot there. Yeah, we've been growing quite a bit in the last year and a half. So scale is something extremely important. So you caught us at a good time. We will be hopefully scaling with some business partners for each of the departments down the road. So yeah, be something I at least like to hear about.
Okay, awesome. Well, great to hear you guys are scaling at that fast sort of scale, and that's typically where organization come to us as well. Because as the numbers go up, it becomes slightly more difficult to keep track of those investigations. You like to see what each HR department, each business partner is doing, and you want to have access to that one centralized place where you're able to store all that information. So from Bill, from what I'm hearing at the scale you guys going, this is potentially you're looking for in the future. Would it make sense to book a quick 15-minute call just to get an idea of what's in the market? So as you're scaling and you want to bring a solution in, you have a better idea of what's out there in the market for yourself.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't hurt. I can't really commit to anything right now. Would it be something I could bring some of my team members to? I'd like to get their thoughts as they're going to be a big part of this scaling and want to make sure it's something they feel comfortable from a usability point of view.
Absolutely, for sure. We especially encourage people bringing all their sort of people that will be using the platform in just to get a better idea that what fits you best, and we can get a whole scope of how we're gonna come in and solve your solution as well. So, Bill, if you have your own calendar and maybe your colleague's calendar open, we can schedule something sometimes later this week if that works for you. What does your availability look like?
Would Tuesday at 11 East Coast time work? We do have a standing team meeting. So I know everyone's available. They're going to be there. And we could start our team meeting with that first 15 minutes if that works.
That works awesome. That's perfect. I have that availability over right here right now as well. Bill, I have your email on file here. I'm just gonna send you that invitation. If you can just confirm if you received it and accept it as well, that's just gonna let us know you'll be attending.
Yes, I got it, and I will forward to my team. And again, they're all going to be there. It's our standing team meeting.
All right, awesome, Bill. Bill, thank you so much for giving that 30 seconds of your time today. I really appreciate it, Bill. Like I mentioned, we're happy to have your team on board and give you a little bit more information. I look really forward to meeting you on Tuesday.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ali. Have a good one.
Have a good one. Take care.
Cool. Let's give Ali a round of applause. Good job. And also, people in the
Thank you,
comments,
guys.
let us know H already said well done, so that's that. But if anybody else wants to add in your comments. You can also add in feedback too. And again, like I said, raise your hand if you want to come on stage, or you have questions for us about cold calling. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go since I was listening in, and then Bill can give his feedback. So overall, this was a great job on pace, asking questions, driving. Overall, I think you did a good job of continuously nudging Bill to obviously the end point, and you got multiple people on a call, so that's always good. We like that. My one thing that I would say, this is actually like, it's very granular, but I believe it will make your pitch stronger. And some people may do this or they may not, but all the calls that I've analyzed, the one thing that I notice that people will do is they'll, like you mentioned, saying, "Hey, you're X title from X company." I don't think you really need to say that there. I think you could just go in and just say, "Hey, typically when I talk to people in HR," and go into what you said on the later half. I don't think you need, like, I was on LinkedIn, saw you're this title, saw you're at this company. That doesn't give any insight on anything. It doesn't like further where you need, it doesn't further help you where you need to go. I would just stick to like, yep, typically we talk to HR departments. Here's what we do. Here's how we go about it. Have that leading question. And then now you're off to the races. And it shortens that value prop too. But I like the creativity that on the intro. I think you did a good job on pace and questioning. I would just change up that typically. I would just bring up that typically HR part and then go forward. So that was my advice, is suggestions there. But Bill, you let me know what you're thinking.
Yeah, I will say great tone, great meter, good pauses to take off of Morgan's tip there. I feel you're approachable, very easy to talk to. So that's definitely a real power. I think the value statement, little long, kind of let's get there. But I think what you had in it was really well. You started to reflect on when I said scale. I think that's where we could possibly discover a little more, build the opportunity deeper. But I loved you pivot, got right to the meeting. And, I kind of suggested a way to do it. You didn't even blink at that, went right for it, sent the calendar, got me to confirm. So I thought really, really well done. One little thing I'll say sometimes too, with taking off of what Morgan said, is go right into it. And I like giving 3 choices, and I like adding emotional words to it. Hey, I talk to HR professionals and I hear they're really concerned with managing their caseload, right? They're, upset that they can't track some of the data and see the end results and report up the chain. And they're worried about being exposed by not having this data to prove the HR team's headcount and opportunity. I doubt those kind of things are important to you. So again, giving them some choices and bringing them where they want to go will open up that route to more discovery and creating not just meetings, but meetings that will hopefully convert to opportunity.
Awesome, guys. Great feedback. Thank you so much.
Ollie, appreciate you, man.
Take care.
All right, so we have a question here. Let's see. Okay, so we're gonna bring this one up, and it's actually just a really good question here. So, favorite cold call openers. Bill, what's yours? I feel like you got like a million. So, like, what is your cold call opener? What you got?
It's funny because I am an old school Sandler guy for years. I am a Sandler certified trainer. So I love, the basic permission base. Hey, can I just get a few seconds so I'm calling, see if it makes sense to continue? What it does, I think, and then you're pausing, you're slowing people down. Mm-hmm. And then I hit them with my 3 choices, right? I talk to HR folks and I hear they're worried about this, concerned about that, upset with this. I think people buy emotionally than just quickly. So I want to find out where their concerns, upsets are, right? Because again, people act on emotion. Let's get them to that world of emotion. So I will say that permission based, can I just get a few seconds time calling, see if it makes sense to continue, slow them down, and then get them to talk about what's important to them and kind of learn, roll with where they take me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a Great breakdown there. My favorite one is I've stuck with it. It's called PLA. I've stuck with it for a while. It's permission-based opener. I think some people like it or they don't like it. It's really up to you. But the way that I go about the intro is it's pleasant, laughing, arms up. So let's say if I'm calling Bill, I'll be like, "Hi, Bill. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, look, I know I'm catching on the blue here. However, do you have a few moments to chat?" So the reason that I do that is because most people are never thanked for the cold call themselves. So that actually gets people to lean in and be like, "I'm interested." Second part is the laugh. So essentially, the whole point there is it creates levity in the conversation, so people are more light. And then arms up is I have an arms up, so I'm unassuming, and so essentially, people are willing to actually follow up and say, "Hey, like, what is that about? What's going on?" So I found that actually to be pretty interesting as well. So that is my intro that I like to use. But I think the most important thing out of any intro is you have to find what is best for you and then execute it. PLA has worked for a lot of people that I've worked with, but some people absolutely don't like it. Cool. But the thing is, like, you do need to figure out what your intro is. If you decide to not do an intro, then that's a way worse scenario because the first 3 to 10 seconds of the call, if you don't nail intro, a good compelling hook, they won't listen to you. And so you have to make sure that you nail that.
And one thing to add there, Morgan, I will say, other than I would say the most important words in the world after "I love you" are "please" and "thank you." I think those are so important. And also, don't underestimate the power of the word "help." Can you help me? People are innate to want to help. And I think, remembering those key words, much like the emotional words in our trigger statements, those are words that show empathy and draw people in. Again, we're always trying to pull people. We're not trying to push people. And "please" and "thank you" are pulling words that bring people in. And I think those are extremely important.
Awesome. I actually really like that, pulling people in. I guess how do you practice that?
I think it's really around the words that you use, right?
Mhm.
If you think about when I'm pitching, right? I'm not a pitch person. I'm pitching, I'm a commercial. That's a push. Where it's
Mhm.
pull, tell me about you. I hear other folks of this. I doubt you are too, right? When you're being in that negative form, you're actually bringing someone in to want to kind of say, no, 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 this way. Or I doubt you're having that problem. Oh, no, yes, we are too. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes it's that being opposite of them and inciting them to be part of this conversation, to bring them in, kind of be almost being non-assumptive and getting them to feel like you're not forcing an agenda or a thing on them, but getting them to discuss and have a back and forth about.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely spot on. HH also agrees as well. And I think as we come to be interested to hear your perspective, Bill, you're obviously in the weeds, you're training the reps. We're now entering in the summer months, which we know what happens. People are going on holiday. People are going to be gone, right? So, what are some tips you have for people in terms of cold calling that, if they're not, around or things of that nature, what can people be doing to start seeing some success here?
Well, I think part of it, obviously, activity. You
Yeah.
got to kind of back into doing a little more to get around those folks that may be away. I also think that's where sequencing, right? Doing some of the other things around it where, you notice someone's not opening their email at all. Well,
Yeah.
good chance maybe they are away. How can I work around that? I also think that's where you can take some small talk when you build some rapport with someone. Do you have any plans? What's going on? Are you going to have any, especially at the end, you're booking meetings? Are there any times, great way to find out what's happening this summer?
Mhm.
Oh, Morgan, that's great. You'd happy minutes. I know it's summertime. Are there any things I need to work around for you and your team? Now I'm starting to uncover multi-threading. Now I'm starting to
Yeah.
uncover where you might be away, and I'm already starting to build those breadcrumbs for even handing over an opportunity down the road. But it's amazing what you can uncover just by being human, right? By, you know, really understanding, hey, yeah, it's vacation season. I know you're probably going away. Same thing works around holidays as well. Hey, I know it's the holiday season. I'm sure there's some things we need to work around for you and your team. Am I wrong there? And now you're starting to uncover a lot more than you expect.
100%. And speaking of uncovering, we actually have two questions that came in that were very similar around gatekeepers. I've on this show, if you've been on the show or seen my content, I've talked about this a lot. So I'll give my perspectives on it. But Bill, would be great to understand, like, what are you coaching people and telling them on what they could do to get past the gatekeeper? What are some things that maybe people aren't thinking about or they can be doing here?
Yeah, I think this is where that magic word help comes in, right? We're appealing to them. Most people treat them as like someone I got to get around, someone I get to, especially as you're calling higher. Those people have access to the most important people's calendars, activities, know what they do, and I'd be like, Morgan, I'd like to ask, could I get a little help from you? And it's amazing, that word. It's magical. People, you think about when there's earthquakes or, whatever bad thing goes on, scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Doesn't matter if you're watching sports or Dancing with the Stars, text whatever, $10 to, help with this relief fund or whatever. And they raise millions of dollars. Why? Because people want to help, right? We're altruistic, and that's something people play into. And most people are trying to treat the gatekeeper not so good. And when you start to appeal, hey, would you help me? What would I need to do to earn some time on your boss's calendar? It's amazing. You can feel almost the melt happen, and they start talking to you. Well, what do you do? What's you want to talk about? And next thing you know, boom, you can end up on the calendar a lot easier than you think.
Yeah, so I love it because that's exactly the same thing that I say. I call it being lost in Disney World. It's like when you're lost, you're just like, can you help me? I'm like, I don't know where to go. It's the same thing here, like with the gatekeeper, right? It's like, can you help me with the upward inflection? It definitely works across the board, and it really helps. I think, yeah, Audrey, this is actually a really good point. Gatekeeper and executive assistant are two different things. So if you're talking to the gatekeeper, they're not going to have the same information that executive assistant does. My advice actually changes. If it's an executive assistant, I actually would just pitch them as if it was the C-suite, because they have contextual understanding of the calendar, the agenda, the priorities. But if we're talking about a gatekeeper, like an operator, switch desk, etc., then yeah, like we're actually talking about what we just said and Bill's advice. I'd follow that. So understanding the distinction between the gatekeeper and the executive assistant is important. And there are two different approaches with that. So it's a really good call out here.
Yeah. And one thing I'll add there, especially in enterprise, one role that I found gave me lots of good answers was investor relations, right? Again, they're very much about the brand of the company, how people perceive them, why they would invest in this company, why might they, if they're publicly traded, why would I buy stock, why would I whatever. And a lot of times they have a darn good pulse of the company, and if they see value in what you're bringing to the table, they're going to put you into that right spot. So I call it, try to get sent to your room, get sent to where, in Ali's case, get sent to the CHRO or an HR business partner, right? You're trying to get into marketing, get sent to the CMO, get sent to the, VP of marketing, and you have that referral now to refer to. And I found that was quite an interesting role. I didn't believe it at first, but now I've been doing it over 15 years, and I've got quite a really good response rate there.
Love that. And then let's go to, okay, this actually is just one. What's your opinion on leaving a voice message if you cannot reach the target directly? I'm all in for leaving voicemails, but Bill, what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's another touch point. It's an impression, to kind of use the marketing term. if it's someone, really high yield, you really want to talk to, maybe give a few shots and then leave the voicemail. But in the end, it's still a touch point and it can pick interest. It's a brand, you're throwing the name out there, where there's brand awareness behind it. But again, I approach it much like the YUI now email kind of style. You got to make sure it's about them if you want any response.
I love that. Yeah, I like voicemails because you want to think about it as someone responding to the email rather than calling you back. So your output of what you're looking for is a lot different. And so the way that I leave the voicemails, again, you said what's in it for them. The framework is I'll say, the reason for my voicemail is X. X is insert value prop or whatever you're looking to do. And then on the back end, I'm saying like, okay, I'm going to send you an email with whatever details it may be. So it might be like cold calling, check this out, whatever it is, what, et cetera. And then at the end, I state my name. So when you do a voicemail, the whole premise is to state something of obviously inherent value in the beginning, and then tell them not to call you back, and then tell them where to go, which is like an email. So we found by saying, hey, look, if you no need to call me back, you're going to increase your email response rates because now they don't feel like there's friction and they'll actually go check out what you sent them. Very, very small detail, but I've actually found it to be very helpful across the board when you're leaving voicemails. So something that anyone can start using right now. Oh, this one happens a lot. I've seen this a lot in a lot of conversations I have, which is, what do you do if a person asks you if this is a cold call? This is like a one that I've seen a lot. And it's like, in this situation, it's like, okay, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you try to run from it? Like, Bill, what do you do here? Because a lot of people, this is where they get tripped up and they'll like, some people just hang up the phone. Like, don't do that. But yeah, you don't want that.
I think this is where your tone, your confidence and whatnot comes in. I always say, yeah, it is. What were you expecting, when you picked up the phone? Put it right back at them, kind of pull them into the conversation, or, I've even gone the route where you're expecting something different, and now it's a conversation starter. Today in Boston, I might say, well, it's probably a hot call because it's going to be 100 here today, and use a little humor at times, and I think that depends on the tone of the person on the other side. If you pick up that maybe they're a little more lighthearted, a little more, loose when you're calling them, a little humor's never a bad thing. It's a hot call. It's going to be 100 here today, and hopefully it's valuable, and you think so too. Where if I feel they're a little more matter of fact, buttoned up, yes, it is. And, you picked up, were you expecting anything different?
You picked up, were you expecting anything different? I actually do like that one. That's a really good one. Now, you mentioned a hot call. Now that's funny, but the thing is, what if you're okay? This can controversial. What if you're not funny? Should you try to be funny on the phone? Like, this is a real question. Like, if you actually just like not like, or is it like, hey, like just be straightforward because you're a straightforward person? I think it's important to talk about because like you can be like, oh, be funny, but it's like if you're not funny, it might not work.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the goofy dad, so I kind of like that. But no, I agree. I think you always got to play to who you are and your strengths. Again, someone who's more product technical will play to that strength. Know that's where your wins are going to come from, right? If you're funny, use some of that humor. I mean, you don't want to overuse it, but take advantage of it. If you're very matter of fact, but you got a great voice, great tone, lean into that. I think it's really important to know who you are and lean into your brand, and that should drive how you answer. So I totally agree.
Yeah. Oh, my wife doesn't think I'm funny. Yeah, I think it's important. The thing is, the reason I say that is it's important to know yourself. If you are actually not funny, you should be careful. Like, you need to understand what you do, what you're about. I understand your premise, but it's really important to understand that, right? I just want to call that out. Like, don't go rogue with this, right? And be mindful. But the thing is, we just talked about when someone says, is a cold call. This is very, very synonymous with this, which is, where did you get my number from? So this one also is interesting because there's a lot of routes you can go with this. I to a degree, like, I laugh at this one because it's like we're in like 2024 at this point. Like, asking where you got my number from, it's like we have iPhones that can go look across the country and we can book flights in an instant on our phone, and we're asking, how did you get my phone number? Don't actually understand that part, but Bill, break this down. Where did you get my number from? What are you saying here?
And there's two sides to this for me because I do work at Cognism, and that's what we sell.
Right, exactly.
So it becomes a great conversation starter, right? You know, hey, Morgan, I'm sure you have at least your SDRs are using to be able to reach out. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
You know, and get them talking and we provide a tool that does that same kind of thing. And I found you there, and you right from there, boom, right back to your permission base or wherever you are in the flow of the call. A lot of times that'll go right to my three choices. Hey, part of the reason I picked you is I see your role, and I know a lot of folks are worried about hitting their numbers. Summer's coming. They're always throwing bigger numbers at us. They're worried that they have the right processes in place to get that done. And they're also concerned that I might not have all the right numbers to be successful. I doubt those things are important in your role.
And then the person's probably like, well, yeah, they are important, right? They're going to buy them into that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
so. On our side, that's a fun question. Again, on the other side, that's where I'd almost answer it the same way, but lead towards, what you do.
Yeah, I think right here, be honest, got them for a tool, whatever it may be. I think trying to get out of this question and not answering it is probably more detrimental than anything. So I think being upfront with it is the piece. I think everyone agrees with that. We have about a couple minutes left. We're going to actually go through some more questions. These are great questions so far. Let us know. I mean, we already saw the Philip, show you some love there, Bill. If this session has been helpful so far, let us know in the chat. It's always good to see that and see exactly what's going on. But if the session has been helpful, let us know in the chat. So there's that. I found receptionists say we don't give out emails or transfer to the person we need. So, I mean, we just talked about the gatekeeper here, but what happens if someone's just not giving you any info? Like, it's a straight blocker. Like, this person is just like, nah, this ain't it.
And I've heard this one a lot, especially in enterprise. I would honestly say, is there a way that I could find that? Could you help me figure that out? There's not a ton you can do there in my eyes.
You know what? I like that answer because I feel like, if we could speak to this, I feel like a lot of times when, there's stuff like this, how do I get around the gatekeeper? How do I handle a scenario? We're looking for some like 360 dunk type answer, right? Where it's like, whoa, I've never heard of that before. But I think sometimes it's as straightforward as you mentioned. And also there's scenarios where it just, nothing's going to happen. Like, the person is just like not going to give you anything, and maybe the timing is off. And that's a part of the game too. You're not always going to convert every single thing that you get on a conversation with. It won't always happen that way. Another important call too. And
one thing I will say that, again, being older, that's where this gray came from, and not having, I remember when there really wasn't tools, and just they were nascent and just starting, get in the phone tree and see how it works. Can I spell the name? Can I, bounce around a couple places? I had a rep at Oracle. Me and him would have contests so you could stay in the phone tree the longest. Whoever lost had to buy lunch. So I'd pick two companies, we'd sit side by side and see who could stay in that phone tree without getting disconnected and bounce around as many places as we could. And again, I think some of it's just being creative, understanding, yes, it is a roadblock for whatever reasons it exists. What can I do to get around it? And then when I hit that, hey, I'm putting too much time in the ROI, it doesn't make sense, move on to something else.
I think that's excellent advice. I think anyone could take that and start executing right now. So as we have 5 minutes left, we're going to wrap up this session today. Bill, number one, what is the lasting piece of advice that you would give? And number two is, what is the thing that you feel like most sales reps aren't doing when it comes to cold calling that you'd like to see more of?
And I think they're tied together, my answer.
Yeah.
It's we need to think like the other side. We have to remember we're calling people who are doing a job, but in the end, they're people. And when we're calling, everything we need to do needs to be sometimes even the opposite of what our mind's telling us. We're trying to get them involved. If I was on the other side, what would I want to hear? What's going to make me want to respond, make me see value? And I liken it to, we grow a very large garden and we do not have a fence. And most people go, well, how come you don't have a fence? And I run a training called Think Like the Bunny. Well, what do bunnies go into gardens for? They want to eat. Well, when we weed, when we have leftover salads and, non-meat stuff, we put it all around the garden about 3 feet out. The bunnies eat all that. They're not looking for the garden. They're looking for food. And I think the analogy is there. We have to think like, if I don't want the bunny to go into the garden, what do I need to do? Right. Within ethical world. Right.
Yeah.
I got to do the same with my prospects. Right. I got to think like them. What would I want to hear? What's going to make me respond? And that's dictated by your industry, your role, what matters to you, even company news, new product launching. Well, if I'm calling marketing, they're going to be all gung-ho about launching this new product. You should make everything about that. So I would say my biggest pieces of advice, everything's about the other side. You will get more by pulling and not pushing.
I think that's a great way of, and the push-pull is an excellent way for people to walk away with. And Bill, where can people find you? We're going to ask this one last question that will be super quick, but where can people find you if they want more information?
Sure. They can hit me up on LinkedIn. So I'm on there. I know we're in the invite as well. And you can hit me up at Bill Petersen, SEN, at Cognism.com. Always happy to interact and, learn. I learn new every day. I learn something new. And, I hope well into retirement until my last day, I learn something new every step of the way. So please interact with me. I learn as much from all of you as I do for anything I can give.
Perfect. And then within that, then let's go into this last question. How do you handle the usual, I'm not interested, before starting to say something properly? I'm curious how you do it. I'll give my perspective on this one. I use humble disclaimer, then a question. So I'll say, if they say, okay, like, I'm not interested, I'll be like, yeah, this might sound like a crazy question, but like, what makes you, basically I would say, what are you not interested in? Because at that point, I haven't said anything yet. So if they say not interested, it's like, okay, like, I'll be like, hey, this is a little bit of a crazy question, but what are you not interested in? And if you are funny and you have good delivery, you can be like, hey, yeah, this is going to be a crazy statement, but like, what are you not interested in? Was it like my voice? Did I sound weird when I came on the phone? Like, you can take it there if you want to, and I'll do that sometimes. But that's what I do, because they are saying not interested, but it's like, what are they not interested in? Like, we've said nothing. So that's another thing as well.
I totally agree. That's exactly how I handle it. I believe in, it's a reflecting, a lot of early objections, I liken to going to the beach, right? And you got all the waves coming in. that first objection, I'm not interested. We have no budget, right? All that. I liken that to the waves where the little kids are sitting and people are skimboarding, right? They're kind of easy, kind of almost just, I'm testing you,
Right.
right? The second objection is like standing at your knees. Yeah, you got to do a little work, but it ain't that hard. You go further out, that third objection, it's the waves are big. But the funny part, when you look past the waves, everything's nice and clear. You're like, where are these waves even coming from?
Right.
And so, in a sense, we're riding the Bronco. And sometimes you have to throw them back at them so they hear kind of how silly the question was.
Yeah.
Not interested. Well, I'm a little confused. What are you not interested yet? We haven't got very far.
Yeah. We've
Now,
covered
all
nothing.
of a sudden, you've diffused it and you're kind of talking about, well, we already have a solution. Now you're in that spot where
Right.
you can do what you normally do.
Exactly. So that's how you would handle that piece. Hopefully that helped answer your question that you said there. As we wrap this whole entire thing up, definitely connect with Bill. If you'd like Bill, we could definitely bring him back. This first episode he's on. I really enjoyed this content piece, and we do this on a monthly basis. So if you have been here before, welcome back. If you haven't, hopefully you join us back, and hopefully you take this advice and these things that we talked about and use it moving forward. Right. As well. So hopefully you'll enjoy it, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Cheers.